Welcome back. Today, we're exploring the power of prayer through one of the Bible's most incredible stories, that of the prophet Elijah and his encounter with the prophets of Baal. And we'll also talk about how we can make our own prayers just as powerful. Let's start by setting the scene. In Elijah's time, the kingdom of Israel was in a spiritual crisis. King Ahab had allowed the worship of Baal, a false god, to spread throughout Israel. This false worship was tearing the people away from their relationship with the one true God. Imagine a land that once walked in God's light, now slipping into darkness and confusion. It was in this time of widespread idolatry that God called Elijah to stand as a prophet and bring the people back to him. Elijah's heart was heavy. He saw how far his people had strayed. But he knew something powerful. Elijah knew that prayer was his weapon, the means through which he could invite God's power into this situation. With boldness, Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to meet him on Mount Carmel in front of all the people. This wasn't just about Elijah versus the prophets. This was about showing the people who God truly was. Elijah proposed a test. He and the prophets of Baal would each prepare an altar and place a sacrifice on it. But instead of lighting the sacrifice themselves, they would call upon their deity to send fire from heaven. Whoever's God answered by fire would be shown to be the true God. The prophets of Baal began early in the morning. They shouted, danced, and even hurt themselves in an attempt to get their God's attention. This went on for hours, yet there was no answer. Silence. Elijah even taunted them, suggesting that maybe their God was sleeping or on a journey. It was clear that Baal was no God at all. When it was Elijah's turn, he took a different approach. First, he repaired the altar of the Lord with 12 stones, each one representing a tribe of Israel. This was a symbolic reminder to the people of their covenant with God and of who they truly were. Then Elijah went a step further. He soaked the altar with water, not once, not twice, but 3 times until water filled a trench around the altar. By doing this, he showed that no human could set this altar on fire. This would have to be a miracle. Elijah wasn't just offering a sacrifice. He was surrendering fully to God, trusting that God would act in a way only he could. When everything was ready, Elijah stepped forward and prayed a simple yet powerful prayer. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your commands. Elijah didn't shout or try to impress. He simply and humbly asked God to reveal himself. And then God answered. Fire came down from heaven and consumed the offering, the wood, the stones, the dust, and even the water in the trench. The people fell on their faces, crying out, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." This was the power of prayer in action. Elijah's faith brought him into alignment with God's will, and his prayer allowed God's power to flow in a way that no one could deny. So, how can we pray like Elijah? How can we make our prayers effective and full of faith? Let's look to the words of Jesus in Matthew 6 verse 9 for guidance. Jesus taught us a powerful model of prayer, often called the Lord's Prayer. He begins with these words, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." Our Father. Jesus invites us to approach God as our loving Father. Just as Elijah trusted God with a father-like confidence, we are invited to come to God not in fear, but as His children, loved and valued. Who art in heaven. This reminds us of God's majesty and power. When we pray, we're speaking to the Creator of the universe, the same God who sent fire from heaven for Elijah. It's humbling to realize that this powerful God listens to us. Hallowed be thy name. This is a reminder to approach God with reverence and respect, acknowledging His holiness. Elijah didn't take God lightly. He respected God's authority and holiness. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Just as Elijah prayed according to God's will, we are called to seek God's will, trusting that His plans are best. Prayer isn't about forcing our desires, but aligning ourselves with God's purpose. Give us this day our daily bread. Prayer is also a way of asking God to provide for our needs. Elijah trusted God to show up in that moment of need, and God came through. And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Part of a powerful prayer life is seeking forgiveness and offering it to others. This clears any barriers in our relationship with God. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Prayer helps us seek God's protection and guidance daily, strengthening us against temptation and helping us walk in His ways. Elijah's story shows us that prayer is more than just words. It's an act of faith, a powerful connection with God, and a way to bring heaven's power into our lives. Like Elijah, we don't need fancy words or a perfect life. All we need is a willing heart, open to God, trusting that He hears and responds. If this message has spoken to you, take a moment right now and pray. Use Jesus' example from Matthew 6, or simply talk to God about what's on your heart. Prayer is powerful, and you can use it to connect deeply with Him every day. If you'd like, share your thoughts in the comments below or leave a prayer request. Let's build a community that supports each other in prayer. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's continue this journey of faith together. God bless.